Welcome to our today's class. In our today's class, we want to look at Vlookup, Hlookup and Xlookup. I want to use today's class to explain what you need to understand about Vlookup, which is vertical lookup. Then we have the Hlookup, which is a horizontal lookup. And the new one that has been introduced by Microsoft Excel, which is the Xlookup. Now, in what case do we use the Vlookup? We'll talk about the Vlookup, which is the vertical lookup. You make use of Vlookup when the record you are trying to look up are arranged in that case. Excel introduced a function which is called the vertical lookup. Before now, the vertical lookup was introduced to just look at only the records that are arranged vertically, while the Hlookup, in the other hand, is introduced for you to be able to look up records that are arranged horizontally. So these are the two main type of lookup that we had before now. But then there were some loopholes, or let me say there are some lacking areas in these two functions. Now Excel in 2019 introduced the Xlookup. The Xlookup have the capacity of looking up data that are arranged vertically and looking up data that are arranged horizontally. So these are the major three type of lookup that we want to talk about. So the Xlookup did not just address the problem of Vlookup and Hlookup. It also had a lot of other functionalities and options that were added to it. So all these have been added to the Xlookup. So we'll go into the course to look at this. So for instance, now let's say I have this product. These are courses, and this is the product ID, and I have the duration of each of these courses. I have the price of these courses, and this is the course code of each of these courses. And I want to use the lookup to look up the name of the course, the duration of the course, and the price of the course. Let's say the only thing I really have at hand is I know the code, or let's say I know the product ID. So now if I know the product ID, for instance, now I know the product ID 1013. If I enter 1013 here, I want a situation where Excel should go into this very record and look up the name of this course, this product for me. And I also want a situation where Excel should look up the duration of this particular 1013, and also to look up the price of this particular 1013. So to do that, we are going to use, first of all, we are going to use the Vlookup, which is the vertical lookup. And I've told us that the reason why we are using the Vlookup is that the records are arranged vertically. And one more thing you need to understand when you are using the Vlookup is this. This is the value that I have, and I want to look up the corresponding name for this particular 131. So the 131, the value that I want to look up, I want to use for the lookup, must always be at the left hand side of your record. That is talking about using the Vlookup. Take note, the record must always, the code I want to use to look up the record now must always be at the left hand side of the record, because the VLOOKUP look up the record in this direction. The VLOOKUP look up the record in this direction. If this 103 that I'm looking for, I'm using, if it's on this very side, VLOOKUP will not be able to look up backward. Rather, it will only look up forward. So that is one thing you need to understand when you are working with VLOOKUP. So let's enter the formula here. What is the formula? Equal VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP, open bracket. Now, Excel is asking a question here. What the lookup value? What value do you want to look up? I want to look up the value that I have inside this particular cell. I could have put in the value, but for more dynamic reason, you have to put in the cell address where the value you want to look up is going to be. Now, for the next one, option we have here is the table array. The table array. It's asking us now, where do you have the record? Now, my record, I have my record in this particular table. Now, what you need to do is highlight the area where you have the record. I have the record in this particular table. I'll put a comma here. That is where it's going to find this particular record. And then it says, what the record I want to return, what index number is the record I want to return. Now we'll talk about the index number. This table here has index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have to tell Excel the name of the product I want you to return. You are going to find it in column, is it column 1, column 2, column 3, or column 4? In this case now, I have the record, the name I want to return in column 2. So my index number in this case is going to be 2. Then, comma. The next option I have there is optional. That is either approximate match or exact match. So I'm going to leave that for now. So since it's optional, I'll just leave that for now and press my enter key. And when I press my enter key, it returns the record telling me that 1013 is certificate in digital literacy. Now, if I change this to, let's say, I have a course, I know the course code, the course product ID is 1016, but I don't know the name of that very product. So once I do that, it's telling me that this is the name of that product, that course, which is Diploma in Information Technology Application. So now, the next thing we want to look at is, I also want a situation where the duration of this particular course is thrown up as soon as I enter the product ID. So the same thing we are going to do. We are going to use our VLOOKUP. So equal VLOOKUP. As soon as you start typing the VLOOKUP, Excel will throw it up for you. So you can just press your tab key and then continue with the formula. The next thing we want is, where do we have the lookup value? Our lookup value is what we have in G2, comma, followed by, our lookup value is what we have in G5, not G2, G5. Then that will be followed up by the table array. And we say this is our table array. So just specify your table array. You can just type the name of the table array if you have it named, or you can just highlight the table array. Then comma, followed by the index number. In this case, the index number is 1, 2, 3, because the record we are looking for, we are going to return, are in column 3. So index number 3, comma, the next one is optional. So exact match or approximate. For false, I can just put 0 and then press my enter key. And that tells me that this course is a 12 weeks course. And then we now talk about the price of this particular course. The same thing we can do here using the VLOOKUP, equal VLOOKUP, and then just press your tab key, and then followed by the cell where you have the value. I have the value inside this particular cell, and then I'll put my comma, and then after my comma that will be followed by the table array, and this is the table array where I have the value. So I enter my table array, and after that I press my comma, and then the next thing Excel asks me is what index. My price is in index 1, 2, 3, 4, index 4. So I'll specify index 4 as my price, and I want to use first, that is this last argument. I can just put 0 there, close the bracket and press my enter key, and that tells me that that particular cost is 50,000. Now I can format this after all I've done. Let me just format that. Okay, so we can play with this. So this is how the VLOOKUP is used. The VLOOKUP is used when you have your record arranged in a table, in a vertical table. That is the VLOOKUP. But then the VLOOKUP has some, let me say, some areas that are lacking. For instance, if I enter, let me say I enter a record like 2110, and here Excel is telling me that they cannot find this particular product ID. Now Excel is showing me NA. In VLOOKUP, I don't have any option of dealing with this NA. So when you are using this VLOOKUP option, you don't have any way of dealing with the NA results. So what you need to do now is Xlookup provided a way for us to deal with the NA issue, which we are going to look at as we move on. So that is one area that the VLOOKUP is lacking. So if I put in 1001, for instance, VLOOKUP is going to throw the result of my table for me. So that is about the VLOOKUP. The next thing we want to look at is the Hlookup, which is the horizontal lookup. Like I said earlier, the horizontal lookup is used in a situation where your record, the record you are working on, are arranged horizontally. So in this case now, all we are going to do is use the same formula, but instead of the VLOOKUP, we will be using the Hlookup. So what do we do here? We now use equal Hlookup. As I start typing it through it for me, press your tab key. It's asking you the cell where you have the value. I have the value that I'm looking for inside this particular cell. So I use my comma here, and it's asking me of my table array. This is my table array. I can just hold Ctrl Shift and my right arrow key to highlight everything. And when I do that, I can come back now and say, put my comma there. And the next thing is, it's asking me where do I have the index number, just like we did in VLOOKUP. The index number in this case is index 1, 2. So the index number in this case is counted this way. So index 2, that is where we have the record. So I'll put index 2, comma, then followed by my optional. So I'm just putting throw up the name of the product for me. We can as well use the same thing when we are using the looking for the duration, which is equal Hlookup. I press my tab key. So the cell I'm looking up that record is this particular cell. Then the table array is this particular array. Remember, hold down your shift control and then press your left arrow key, your right arrow key to highlight your entire table array. And after that, I press my comma, and the next thing I'm looking at is the index number for my duration. And my index number for duration is 1, 2, 3, which is index 3. So I will use 3 and then close my bracket and press my enter key. That threw up the duration. And the last one we have here is the price. So the same way, the Hlookup, press my tab key, and then the cell address where the value, the lookup value is located, comma, then followed by the table array. And this is my table array. Control Shift right arrow key to highlight everything, and then comma, that will be followed by the index number. In this case, my index number is 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4, index 4. And then comma, I'm putting 0 there, and then close my bracket and press my enter key. And that gives me the price of this particular course, just the way we had it in our Vlookup. So the only difference between the Hlookup and the Vlookup is that you use the Hlookup when your records are arranged horizontally, and you use the Vlookup where your records are arranged vertically. While in the other hand, we have the Xlookup. Like I told us before, Xlookup was introduced in 2019. It depends on your update. Maybe you may see it in your 2016, depending on your update. But you will always find it from 2019 upward. So let's see this case now. What if I want to use the course code? Maybe all I remember is the course code, and I want to use the course code to look up. If I try to use the Vlookup for the course code, let's see whether it works. Equal Vlookup. I press my tab key. The value I want to look up is whatever value I'm going to enter here, comma. Then the table array. Let's say this is my table array. This is my table array. And after my table array, Excel is asking me the column index where I have it. I want to look for the name. And this is my columns index. So if I put, for instance, now I put 2 there. If I put 2 there, comma, the last one is optional. So let me just put 0 there and close my bracket and see. This will not work because, take note, the Vlookup will always look up the value to the right hand side. It does not have the capacity of looking up the value to the left hand side. So just to give us a background of what the Vlookup and the Hlookup is, and we say the Xlookup have been introduced to salvage that very problem, where in a situation where we can now use Xlookup to look up value either to the left hand side, to the right hand side, or vertically or horizontally. So Xlookup is a new method. But why I'm introducing this Vlookup and Hlookup to us is that you may be working with a system that do not have the Vlookup update. So if you don't have the Vlookup, you can still use the, if you don't have the Xlookup, sorry, you can still use the Vlookup and the Hlookup to get your problem solved. We are going to look at more practical examples where we are going to use the Vlookup, the Hlookup, and the Xlookup in real life. So I'll be creating another section of this video specifically where we'll be discussing Xlookup, because there are so much to discuss in Xlookup. Thank you. Watch out for the next video. If you have been able to learn anything from this video, just give it a like, subscribe, and give it a thumb up. Thank you.